Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Let's Solve Tactics series. So last time we had reached 1752 in the tactics trainer ratings, so let's see how far we can take it today. Okay, so this one is black to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause your video. So I think it's a easy one unless I'm mistaken. So I'm thinking queen takes knight, and if he recaptures I fork the king and queen with knight to f3 check. After queen takes e5, he can throw a check with queen to a8. But let's say I go back to h7, he can check me again from e4. But then I can just cover with my knight to f5, and I think he has. I think I should be okay there. Yeah, so I'm gonna start there. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, white to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause your video. So okay, an endgame of some kind where black, sorry, just captured my knight on d4 with his bishop. So the obvious move is, of course, to recapture and get into a pawn endgame. But we need to evaluate whether, for some reason that pawn endgame is bad for us or not. I do notice that in that pawn endgame we'll have this pawn on f5, passed pawn, which the king cannot stop, the black king cannot stop. So let's see. So if king takes d4, pushing pawn to b3 from black, I come back to c3 maybe. He goes king a3. I go f5, f6. Let's calculate that again. Okay. So I take the bishop. Now he can either go king to b3 or pawn to b3. I think those are the two moves that make sense. Or maybe king to a3 as well. So let's say pawn to b3. Now if I push f6, he goes pawn to b2. I push f7, he goes pawn to b1 queen, and I queen with f8. And I'm not sure what's happening there, to be honest. Okay. So after king takes bishop, pawn to b3, what if king to c3? King to c3, he goes king to a3. Now I go pawn to f6. He goes king a2. Pawn f7. King b2. Pawn f8. b1 queen. And there I will be able to check him on a8. So queen to a8 check. And unless I'm mistaken, that is mate, I think. So I'm looking at king takes bishop. He goes king pawn b3. I go king c3. Now to push the pawn further, he needs to go king a3. And I go pawn f6. He goes pawn to b2. I go pawn f7. He queens, I queen, and it's his move. So I did miscalculate earlier. Okay. Okay, I feel like I'm not being very thorough here. Okay, so I'm gonna try and be more thorough this time. Okay, so if I do not take his bishop and I play pawn to f6 or something, or move my king somewhere else without taking the bishop, that really does not make sense. If I play pawn to f6, his bishop can capture, and then he's winning. And if I move my king somewhere else, I could go to d3, but he will be able to win if his bishop stays alive. Yeah. So taking the bishop is basically forced, but I want to see how to proceed after that. So, okay, king takes d4, b3. Now I have options. Actually, sorry, king takes d4. Now black can play king b3 or pawn b3. So let's consider pawn b3. Now I have options. I can go king c3, trying to stop the pawn, or I can ignore his pawn and go f6. So if we go f6, b2, f7, b1 queen, f8 queen, and there I'm not sure if he is able to check me somehow and win my queen, but uh, yeah, I'm not positive about this position. So because it's his move there, and he will be able to check me from many different places. So I don't know if there is some way to skewer my king and queen and win the queen on f8. So okay, so that's one possibility. So after king takes bishop, pawn b3, I went pawn f6. So what if after b3 I go king c3? So king c3. Now king a3 is the only move that makes any sense. So king a3 is forced. Now what if I go f6 right there? f6. Now he could go pawn to b2 or king to a2. Now let's look at both. Pawn to b2, there I go f7, b1 queen, and uh, f8 queen check. So that's important. His king is on a3, so f8 queen comes with check. Um, if he blocks that with his queen, I capture it. So he has to move his king. If he moves his king to a4, then queen to a8 will be mate. And if he moves his king to uh, b2, then what would I do there? Queen b8 check or queen b4 check, let's say. Queen b4 check, king c1, I'm wondering if I can trade queens there, like without letting him go to c1, like I just trade queens after queen b4 check, and then his king will end up on b1 and mine is on where is my queen? My king. Where is my king? Let's see again. My king was on c3. So in that position, after trade of queens, I will be able to play. I'll be able to go and try and take his pawn and win the pawn endgame. Let's see if that works. Uh, king. Let's say king d3, king c1, king e3, king d1, king f3, king e1, king g4. I don't think that's how he plays. He tries to get to the corner. Okay, so let's start again. So king d3, king b2, king, maybe king d4, king b3, king e4, king c3, king f4, king d4, king g4, king e5, king takes h4, king f6, and he's reaching the corner in time, so that's a draw. In any case, I do feel that line promises more. So I'm gonna take the bishop, and because I've spent a lot of time, Okay, so far so good. And now the question is pushing the pawn or going king c3. I thought king c3 is better. So king c3, king a3, f6, b2. I can go king b1, or sorry, king c2. But then that allows king a2 and he will queen with check. So I don't think I want that. Hmm. So king c3, king a3, b3, king c2, king a2, f6, b1 check, and I'm definitely losing. Yeah, so king c3 is correct, I think. Okay, and now I think I should push my pawn, of course. What else can I do? Now, I was thinking I should push my pawn again, but let's see. King c2, king a2, f7, he queens with check. And then he can go bring his queen to f1 and stop me from promoting. So I have to push my pawn here. And it says the problem is solved. I want to see how we win there because I just wasn't sure. Okay, so this happened. b3, king c3, king a3, f6, b2, f7, and what if he queens? I check him. Yeah, I had seen this. Now, if he goes here, then it is mate. Okay, I think I missed that part. Okay, and here I should be able to win his queen. Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so hmm. So yeah, didn't do too well on that problem to be honest. So, but got through it fine. Let's let's continue. Okay, black to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause your video. Hmm. So I notice I can take his queen. Uh, his queen is attacking my rook on c8, which is protected by the rook on c2. I have some pressure around the king side. Rook takes f2 could be a consideration. Uh, his bishop out here is unprotected. And his queen could be some kind of tactical target. Also, I may have some back rank check. So let's see. Let's look at some candidate moves. Queen takes queen is obviously a consideration. Rook takes f2 could be considered. I think I'll start with queen takes queen because I feel that may lead to something good. So queen takes queen, he takes me back. So rook takes d7. Now rook c1 check. Now king e2, rook e1 check. His king moves and I take on e6. So I win a rook there. I think that should be good. My back rank is covered, so I have nothing to worry. Check here, take. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so this one is black to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause. White just moved the rook from a1 to e1. Okay, so white is hitting our bishop. Uh, the material looks like it is equal. Okay. The queen on c3 looks a bit short of squares. Like if the queen were to move right now, I can only see that it can only go to b3, the only safe square. Every other square is covered by my knight or bishop or pawn. So that being the case, I almost want to start with some move that attacks the queen. So pawn to d4, unleashing my bishop on e6, or bishop to c3. or even any knight moves because my rook is attacking his queen. So those come to mind. Hmm. Other than that, my other pieces are not that well developed. My bishop on e6 is hanging. So okay, I'm going to start looking at those. So let's say pawn to d4. So pawn to d4, he can capture the pawn with his knight, or he can try to do something else. Now the queen is attacked, and as far as I can tell, it has no safe squares. So the queen cannot move, or it can, but it'll be lost. So knight takes d4. Then I have knight takes d4, unleashing an attack of the rook on the queen. And I also conveniently protect my bishop on e6 using the knight. So his queen is attacked again. What does he do there? Uh, hmm. Just trying to figure out what he may do there. He can try blocking the attack, I guess. I don't think his queen has any squares to go to. So he may try bishop c4 or knight c4. In which case, I don't need to calculate further. I think I've already got a piece after d4. So that looks good. Bishop to b4, queen to b3, d4 doesn't look as appealing because he takes my bishop with his rook. So d4 is the move. And I take with the knight now. And that's that. The queen is trapped. And he has to block with something like knight c4 or bishop c4. In which case he's self-pinning himself, and I may have moves like b5. And we are already a piece up. Okay. Okay. Black to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause your video. So I notice right away this alignment of the two pieces on the fourth rank. And his bishop on c4 is unprotected. Uh, he does have some threats of his own though. Is queen to h4 dangerous? Queen to h4 forces king to g6, after which queen to g5, I have to come back. Is there any other follow-up? Queen to g3 check. Not sure. It does seem somewhat dangerous. My king definitely looks a little exposed. The fact that this bishop on c4 controls the g8 square means that my king is stuck out in the open. Uh, hmm. So what do we do? Is he really threatening anything? Is the question. So queen h4 check. Let's say it's white's move. Queen h4 check. King g6. Now what's his follow-up? His queen is attacked. So queen g3 check is possible, but I can always retreat back to h7. If I go to f6, then queen g5 check is mate, right? Yeah. Okay. So, but I can always repeat by going between, shuffling my king between g6 and h7. So I think the threats are not that dangerous right now. Okay. So what can I try? Let's see. So queen to e4, hitting his bishop is a move. Queen to g6 is a purely defensive move. I do feel like I'm somehow missing the point of this position. Actually, queen to g6 may not end well after queen h4 check, because I have blocked the g6 square and now I have to give up my queen. Uh, yeah, so not queen g6. Okay. Queen e4 is a candidate. Not finding too many forcing moves. Something like knight e5 or knight a5 hitting the bishop could be something. Bishop e6 could very well be a candidate. Just blocking out the bishop and providing the g8 square to my king. If it's a defensive problem, then bishop e6 might as well be, you know, this might be the solution. Uh, hmm. Okay, let's say knight a5. Knight a5. If he goes bishop a2, what's my follow-up? Oh, I do notice something. After the knight moves, I will have some ideas of bishop to b5 check against his king. But I don't know what my follow-up is after that, after the king moves to g1. I'm not able to check him on the back rank because his rook on a1 guards that. So very unclear somehow. Okay, no interesting moves with either of my rooks, I don't think. This one is somehow tough for me. I don't know. I'm really not uh, understanding what this problem is about. What am I supposed to do? Knight e5. Knight e5. White may even play rook e1. And I have put myself in a pin. And that's not looking good. Hmm. Knight a5 is interesting. But there is bishop d3 even. So no more bishop b5 check. Queen e4. Really not sure. Hmm. Okay. I have to make some move. So I'm going to try bishop e6. Most probably getting this one wrong here. Let's see. Oh, wow. I got that correct. Okay. I'm very curious what the big deal is. It's a purely defensive move, and I want to see the pass rate on this. 47.9. So a tough problem. Hmm. Oops, what did I just do? Did I just click on the next one? Oh. I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to analyze that one, but oh well. I cannot really go back. I don't know how to do that. So I will probably check out my stats and show you guys the problem again once we are done with this. So, okay, let's continue. Black to play. White just captured something on b7 with his queen. Go ahead if you would like to pause. Uh, okay, so what do I notice here? Some back rank weakness possibly for white. I have the queen and two rooks kind of lined up with some kind of a, like, they're all influencing his back rank, and there is already this tension between the two rooks. So that's something. Also, the fact that he just has self-pinned his bishop by moving his queen here. So this bishop is now pinned. That could be interesting. Okay. Hmm. So what are my candidates? Also, I have to realize that his queen not only self-pins himself, but also is actually attacking my rook a second time. So rook takes d5 could be possible by white. Okay. Hmm. Okay, I'm seeing some ideas. So what if I take his rook? That's definitely a candidate. What other candidates could be there? Putting pressure on this bishop, some queen b4, queen b3, or even some bishop d4 kind of ideas. Just trying to win the pin piece. Definitely an idea. He can always get out of a pin by throwing in a check with the queen. So queen a8 or queen c8, forcing king h7 possibly. Okay, so other moves, queen to b3 right away could be something, attacking the rook, defending my rook, attacking his bishop. I'm going to start with taking his rook because that looks very forcing. So rook takes d1. So he can throw some checks, queen c8 check, I go to h7, and he doesn't have any good follow-ups. If he checks me on h3, I can trade queens, and if he checks me on f5, my rook on b5 will capture the queen. So checks on the back rank don't seem that dangerous. Queen to a8 also doesn't have any good follow-ups. Actually, I take that back. Queen to a8 check, king h7 does allow queen to e4 check, in which case I could play pawn to g6. I think I'm okay. So okay, rook takes rook, rook takes d1, that is, and he takes back. Now his rook on d1 is unprotected, so I could go queen to b3, attacking his rook and attacking the bishop on b6. So a fork basically. Now he can deal with it by giving me a check with his queen, or if he goes rook to d6, trying to defend his rook as well as the bishop, then I will be able to mate him after queen b1. Okay. So let's see. Rook takes d1, rook d1, queen b3. Let's say queen c8 check. King h7. I'm still attacking both the rook and the bishop, and he doesn't have any good follow-up checks. If he plays queen h3 check, I can trade queens and take the bishop, and I'm doing well. I have an extra bishop. So queen a8 check instead of queen c8 after rook takes d1, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, rook takes d1, queen b3, queen a8 check, king h7, queen e4 check, g6. There is no queen h4 thanks to my bishop on f6. I think I should be, I'm still having the fork. And if rook d6 there, I can of course take the bishop. I could also go queen b1. I like that. So okay, check. We did look at this. So he comes here, which I did not anticipate. So what is the point? If I take the bishop now, he has queen f5 check. That's crafty. And queen f5 check. If I play g6, he takes my bishop, right? And if I go to h6, what does he do then? Queen h3 is covered. He could go to f4, queen f4 check. But there I may go bishop g5. And what does he have? I think he's out of checks there. So after rook takes b6, queen f5 check, king h6, maybe okay. What if I go king g8? Then he checks me again with queen c8. If I go king h8, he checks me again with queen c8. So king h6 will be forced, and I think I'm okay there. So I'm gonna play this. Let's see. And okay, we got 5 points. Let's quickly look at that. So let's go all the way here to the end of the problem, and I wanted to see what happens after. Wait, what just happened? Queen d7. Yeah, here, check. The computer says just play g6. What did I miss? Oh, I missed that. This rook is first of all guarding the bishop, and I'm attacking his rook, so he doesn't have any threats at all. Okay, not too sharp today. Fine, let's keep going. Okay. White to play. Go ahead if you would like to pause your video. Black just moved their rook to uh, b7. Okay. So white's two rooks definitely have some pressure around my king and on the pawn on b2. There could be some threats of mate with rook to b5 and rook takes a5 kind of things. Yeah. And black has extra pawns here, doesn't he? He has an extra pawn, one extra pawn. I do realize that the king is attacking one of the rooks, so some dynamic move like pawn to a6, trying to distract one of the rooks and win one of the rooks could be possible. So definitely a candidate. Rook takes b5 check, and giving up the rook doesn't make sense. Rook takes pawn, meaning rook takes d6. Could be possible, but I don't know. I'm going to start with pawn to a6. So pawn to a6 looks very forcing. So he has to do something. Either he can check me with rook to b3 check, whereupon I can go to a2 or a4, but let's say a2. Then he can move his rook, the other rook, on b7. He has to keep it on the b file. I guess that's the thing. So if he goes to, let's say, rook 7 to b6, then I push the pawn further, pawn to a7, and the pawn is nearing promotion, and yeah, he's not able to comfortably stop it. So after pawn to a6, what does he do? If rook to b8, again pawn to a7, and I feel even after rook to b3 check, whenever he plays that, I go king to a2. The point is I'm always attacking one of his rooks, so if the other rook can be deflected by my passed a pawn, then I'll win the other rook. So I think that should be the right idea. I'm going to play that. Okay, now I do feel I should go here. Okay, there is no mate threatened because I attacked this rook, so I'm going to push. And that is winning, and we reach exactly 1800, which is a perfect time to stop.